Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to the live. I just want to say hello and welcome to Mind Matters with Dr. Jada, where tonight we are diving into some pretty serious issues. And these issues are shaping our thoughts, shaping our society, shaping our families. And I'm really excited tonight because the reality is we're going to dissect Candace Owens' recent interview on The Breakfast Club. Yeah, we're going to kind of explore the nuances and the implications of her perspective. And so, what I'm going to ask you is to just come on in, join us for a thought provoking discussion as we navigate the complexities of identity, politics, and of course, culture. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and of course, leave a comment below because I'd love to know what you think. Now, over the years, people have been talking about Black America and the Republican Party. And I think it's been a pretty hot topic because I too have gone back and forth in trying to, for the most part, understand where I stand in the context of the political landscape. And so, um, back in the day, around the, say, like the 1930s, it seems like Black adults were pretty much split evenly right down the center between supporting the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. But around the 1940s, things kind of changed. And after President Harry S. Truman, who, remember, was a Democrat, made a move to desegregate the US military in 1948. And I remember 1948 because that's when my mother was born, 1948. Then after that, Lyndon B. Johnson, who was again also a Democrat, pushed through the Civil Rights Act in the 60s. And so what that did was solidified the shift away from the Republican Party for many Black Americans because there were certain elements of our freedom that came into play. And so now, here's what I think is important. And the reason I'm talking about this today is because, of course, the presidential election is coming up fairly soon. And when I say soon, we have about 8 months or so until we'll all be going to vote. And so going to the polls really means something different for everyone. And I just want to know what you all think about the differences in, say, being a Republican versus being a Democrat. So I want to know, I really want to know what you think and why you think it. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to make a decision. We all have been gifted the freedom to vote, and I just want to know, what is it that you think? Now, I looked at a Pew poll, and the reason I looked at it is I wanted to understand why Democrats vote Democrat and why Republicans vote Republican. And then we're going to dive into the Candace Owens interview, because I personally believe that people hate Candace for the wrong reasons. I think you have to really know and understand Candace in order to at least give her a fair shot. So here's what the Pew poll said. It says only about 1 in every 10 Black adults lean toward or identify with the Republican Party. And in a survey, and that's the Pew survey, just 4% of Black voters said they would vote for a Republican candidate for Congress in their district, while a huge number of 69% said they'd back the Democratic candidate. But when it comes to their thought on race, Black Republicans and Black Democrats see things differently. Black Republicans tend to think that individual actions are the main issue when it comes to racism, while Black Democrats are more focused on systemic issues. Now, for example, Black Republicans are more likely to think that racist acts by individual people are the main problem, rather, and here's the key, rather than racist laws. They're also less likely to support big changes to the prison system, policing, and the justice system to ensure fair treatment of Black people compared to Democrats. So there you have it. There are just a few insights into Black Republicans and their views on race identity based on the survey, and Black Democrats and their views. And so with that being said, I want to talk and really look at the video of Candace Owens, who did an interview with the Breakfast Club. And even though I think, of course, sometimes Candace can be polarizing, and I think she kind of likes to go against what the average person thinks and says. But here's the key. I really believe that if you look closer at what she's saying, you'll actually see that the core of her values are family, working hard, loving America, and as a mom looking toward the future for her children, and just love of family in general. So one of the things that I want to do is share the actual video and then just kind of chat through it a little bit. And of course, I want to know what you all think. And what you all think is important because, again, we have the election coming up in a matter of months, and we all, fortunately, get to make our own decisions about how we interact and how we respond to I guess I'll say, and I want to choose my words carefully, but how we act and respond to rhetoric, how we act and respond to the narrative that is being sometimes, I believe, forced fed to us, and much of it is not true. And so I want to give Candace the benefit of the doubt and hear it based on her own words of why she believes what she believes. And again, why is it that she, why she voted for Trump, and why she decided to take some matters into her own hands when it comes to her voice. So here we go. Let's listen to the Candace Owens interview.
Wake that ass up in the morning. The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, just hilarious. Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Oh, they're not gonna like this one.
We have Candace Owens.
Candace Owens.
Welcome.
Hello.
How you feeling?
I feel great. A little tired. Had a wedding this weekend, but always feel great.
Back to New York. You're originally from here, right?
Yeah, I was born in New York, raised in Stanford, and then lived in New York after university for like 7 years. So I worked just 2 blocks away from here.
What part of New York?
Did I live in or?
Was born.
I was
raised.
born in White Plains.
Oh, White Plains. Okay. By the Bronx. Okay.
What is the Candace Owens origin story? I mean, I know a little bit of it because me and you actually used to have a lot of conversations back in the day before she changed her number. But
he was mad about that.
I mean, I did change mine, but
girl, he was mad about that. He was like, I've been hitting up, but she ain't going to
it kept going blue. I was like, is she just ignore me?
No, I wouldn't have ignored you. I would have answered. I changed my number. I try to do it every couple of years.
Okay. What for? What? Just because?
Because then you collect all these people that are texting you. You're like, actually, I don't want to talk to this person anymore. But I don't want to tell them I don't want to talk to them anymore. So I just changed my number.
And I'm sure the more you grow, a lot of your family members hit you up for money and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's usually not family members, just random people from your past that haven't spoken to you in forever, but still have your number and will text you and ask for a favor.
Like Charlamagne.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, I just want to say just right here, one of the things that I love about Candace is she's just straight up. She's just like, I just changed my number. I just got tired of people reaching out to me, and in other words, she's setting boundaries. And to me, that's a plus. That has nothing to do with, any negativity. It just is. I changed my number because I'm tired of dealing with folks.
It wasn't him. It wasn't about him. I actually should have messaged you my new number.
Where did all of this begin for Candace Owens?
I feel like I have just a very regular story. Like I said, like I was born in New York, raised in Stanford. There was nothing, particularly that stood out in my childhood that made me think that I was going to go into politics. I feel like I landed into politics kind of accidentally. Mm-hmm. And I say accidentally because I thought I was a liberal my whole life. I thought I was on the left my whole life and really didn't pay attention to politics in any meaningful way. And then, when Trump was running for office, I didn't want him to be elected. I was like this, not because I thought he was a racist or a sexist, but just because I thought it was crazy to go from Obama, who had a certain decorum about him, to suddenly this sort of brash New Yorker. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was weird when all of a sudden the people that liked Trump, everyone thought he was like this iconic symbol of business. He was in rap songs. Trump was a status, flipped on him in 1 second. I didn't buy the narrative that he was in the media for 3-4 decades. And suddenly you wanted me to believe overnight that he was like Adolf Hitler and a racist. So I just didn't trust the media's narrative about him. And so I decided to actually listen to what he said. I still didn't vote for him in 2016, but I wanted to just listen to what he actually said. And then when I saw what he was saying versus how it was being reported, I just found it to be extremely dishonest. So I started researching more, learning more. And then I got kind of angry, like just with the lies, because I do think Black Americans are intentionally manipulated emotionally by the media and, kind of kept dumb but emotional intentionally by the school system. And I started reading up.
Okay, let me just stop right there. This is why Black people hate Candace. This is why Black people hate Candace, because she's straightforward and she's pretty much telling the truth. She says, well, you know what? I think Black America is being manipulated. I think that there are certain systems in place where they intentionally attempt to manipulate the thought process of Black America. Now, from a Black perspective, I think that, yeah, she's telling the truth, because I very much, like Candace, again, voted Democrat for so many years. But then all of a sudden, I just started thinking, something just seems a little bit off. And so I'm just kind of giving her the benefit of the doubt. So again, not necessarily trying to shove this in your face, but I do think that there is some validity here to some of the things that she's saying. But again, I'm like, Candace, can you soften it up a little bit? Can you help us sister out? Can you help us out and just soften it a little bit? But she's straightforward, and much of what she does from the core of who she is. And so let's keep going.
Like Thomas Sowell, Shelby Steele, a bunch of Black scholars I originally had dismissed as Uncle Toms, and irony now is I get called an Uncle Tom all the time. So I got what was coming, but yeah. And then I realized that actually I've always been a conservative. I just didn't know it. And economically speaking, of course, the conservative arguments make the most sense.
Does that bother you that people call you an Uncle Tom?
No, not at all. First off, because if they read the book, Uncle Tom was the hero. But also because I get it. How can I fault people for something that I would have engaged in for the majority of my life? I thought the same thing about Black conservatives. Like I thought it was this betrayal, but I never actually understood it. It was just an emotional response. And I think that kind of is, if you come out of the public school system, I can't imagine how you could be a Black conservative when just the way that they even tell us our own history is just not true,
Do you think that that's true with most people though? Like, when you think of a Trump or just anybody, you're fine with them, but then you learn like their politics, or you learn what they believe spiritually, and then you're like, you're turned off from it.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's necessarily the politics. I really do think the media plays the biggest part in it, because Trump, as far as I know, Trump's been, maybe he used to be a Democrat, but he's been a Republican and a conservative for a long time. I mean, we know he had to have been a conservative in terms of economics. You know, he's wealthy, so you'd be hard pressed to find someone that's wealthy and, you know, advocating for Marxist beliefs. But yeah, I just feel like it's more about the media wants power. The media has a vested interest in things politically, and they like to make us think that we're having this open conversation and we're learning the truth about people. But these are just hatchet smear jobs, libeling people, and I think deluding a ton of people to turn against their own best interests.
So were you more anti-media as opposed to being pro-Trump?
Well, no, I actually, once I actually heard what he had to say, I was like, that's a pretty solid pitch. I mean, it was his Dimondale, Michigan speech, particularly. He got up there and he just started listing all of the statistics in Black America in terms of poverty. I mean, these were just real statistics that he was talking about. And his pitch was basically like, you've been giving your vote to Democrats for 60 years. Why don't you just try something different? You know, I think that's a pretty good elevator pitch. Like, hey, you've been doing the same thing for a long time. I'm not saying I'm amazing, but why don't we try something different and see if it gets better for you?
I'm just going to stop right there. And again, this was something that I felt was very interesting because, I mean, when you talk about an elevator pitch, my thing was, yeah, if you do something over and over and over and over again, and it doesn't work, then at some point you get to a place where you go, maybe I should try something different. I'm just saying. And even if it's not what that person is attempting to get you to try, at least try something different. I mean, something different. And I felt that was a great argument myself. I was just kind of like, okay, what else is there other than the same old narratives that have been playing over and over and over again like a broken record? So I too, very much like Candace, really kind of took a step back and was like, okay, let's see what else. And as an entrepreneur and as someone who owns her own business, again, it was very appealing for me to look at someone like Trump. And again, I'm not saying that some of his antics and how he expresses himself and how he communicates, that I loved it because, of course, you know, my husband and I have had many of arguments and fights, very true, about Trump. However, I believe that every single one of us, given free moral agency, can make decisions that benefit who we are, what we want, where we see ourselves in the next 5 to 10 years, and we make our decision based on the gift that has been given to us or the freedom and liberty that has been given to us to vote based on what we believe and that is best for our family. So I heard that elevator pitch back in 2016 as well, that it was like, hey, I mean, has it worked for you? Really? I don't know, but I appreciated that.
Then suddenly I like flipped over to CNN and it was Don Lemon's like crying. You know, I think it was, I'm maybe being, but it was just, they were so dramatic and they were lying about what he said. They're like, he looked you in the face and told you you were poor. Like, I'm like, that's not what he did at all. So I just got interested. I'm a very curious, interested person. If I get interested in something, I will just take it all the way, read books. And I'm like, why are they doing this? Like, why are all the media companies that I believed my whole life just lying about it? Just say what he actually said and let Black Americans decide for themselves if that's a good enough pitch. They may have said no. I thought it was interesting, but the lying is something that I think is outrageous. It's gotten out of control.
I think it's worse now. I think it's worse now because not only do you have people who will just create the headlines based off what they feel you said as opposed to what you said. You have people that will just straight up manipulate your audio, manipulate your video, just to push a narrative.
One of the wildest things, the craziest things that people say about me all the time, and it drives me crazy because it's literally made up. They're like, Candace said racism doesn't exist. If you go find that headline of Candace says racism doesn't exist, they didn't put it in quotation marks because I never said it. They were like, Candace said racism doesn't exist because she's quote unquote never been a slave. the words "never been a slave" came out of my mouth, but I never said racism doesn't exist. And it was in the context of an entire speech. The media knew that Black people were not going to go watch the speech or try to find the original speech. They were just going to read the headline and react and be like, oh my God, Candace Owens said racism doesn't exist. Like, how could she say this? She's a hypocrite. She's a liar. This happened to her in her childhood.
Yeah, you sued your high school for racism.
Yeah,
So
well,
clearly,
it's actually that's not what happened. I didn't sue my high school for racism.
For not
But
protecting you during that time, I said, right?
Mhm.
They said for not protecting you. They
I
said,
just did you what the media does.
yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
no, it's fine. I mean, I get it because it's something that I've talked about at length. But essentially, I had this situation happen to me in high school where someone that I was actually best friends with left me horrific voicemails. They were racist voicemails. There's no other way to slice it.
They called you a nigga because you didn't want to date him.
No, he actually, I think he was gay, to be honest. It was nothing about dating. I think this was kind of a circumstance of like, I had my first beer. I'll be honest, I got a boyfriend and I just stopped hanging out with my friends. Very typical high school stupid stuff. And this gay guy that I was friends with was like outraged by it. And one night he was out drinking with kids that were way younger than him that I had never met. And they left me horrific voicemails. I mean, like bringing in like Rosa Parks. There was tons of threats.
They did what? What?
They were just like, it was, like it was, there was no way to slice it, but it was, they were extremely racist. And it was terrifying too, because I didn't know who the phone calls were coming from. Long story short, one of the kids in the car happened to be the governor of Connecticut's son. So it became this sort of overnight political story. And while it was going on and there were like news cameras in front of the school, I left school and just homeschooled for, I think it was about 6 to 8 weeks. And basically we got reimbursed for the time that I was homeschooling is what happened. But
Wow.
yeah, so